Hello guys, another late episode of the Fnatic Inside Fnatic's Brush podcast. As you can see, I'm literally back from work. My clothes are drying in the back. I've got my suitcase because I'm going to be leaving this weekend. All sorts of stuff are happening at the same time. One thing's for sure, we're going to go through that podcast one way or another. As usual, I'm your host, Matt Scott. Thank you for joining me again. I'm just finishing a few touches here. There we go. Much smoother. Everything is better. Awesome. Well, week 2 of the LEC, and things are starting to confirm themselves, which is a bit what happens in that format. Obviously, if you only have 9 games, that's already 2/3 of the regular split that's gone. So 3 games with everything to play for. Teams at the bottom of the standings trying to grab an 8th, 7th place, maybe. But more importantly, what we've seen is a bigger distinction between, I'd say, the good top half and the clear, I'd say, bottom tier teams. We'll explain all of that obviously during our LEC segment. Fnatic, who's continuing on their very good run, very nice to see. Obviously, we'll go over the very suspicious BDS game, but in contrast, the very positive and reassuring Giant X and Rogue game. And predictions. Predictions. We love our predictions, especially you guys, since you've taken the lead. Well done. It always happens like this. I feel like I always try to come up with a spicy pick in the second week, trying to be a bit different, and doesn't work out. Doesn't work out. Again, a lot of surprises as a result. So, out of that's 30 games now. 30 games. Yeah. I believe there's barely over 50% correct predictions, which isn't great, guys. It's not great. It's not great for me, because it's even worse for me, because I've got a worse score than you guys. But anyways, LEC. What has been happening in the LEC? 2 major things have been happening in the LEC. BDS has been quite surprising, as they had a very, very poor start to the split last week, and they've been gathering some wins, and especially this week, much more convincing. Now, I will say that they have abused the Blitzcrank, but if it ain't broken, don't fix it. This also allows BDS to have a bit more in their back pocket and say, not only do you have to concern yourself with Adam's pocket picks, his Olaf, his Darius, his Garen, but now potentially you have to look out for Blitzcrank to add in the ban pool. So that's a strong weapon for them. But beyond that, their aggression has been well tempoed across the game. It doesn't feel like they're overstepping, and more than that, it feels like they're inviting the team to make mistakes. Now, I don't know what it is. It feels like in general people don't respect the Blitzcrank pick, so maybe there's a bit of an abuse here. But nonetheless, Labrov has been using that pick very well. Props to him. You still have to pilot and operate the champion at the end of the day, and he's been getting some good grabs. So he knows where to put himself, especially in the bait game, to get those picks. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Now, as you'll see on the standings, there's this top half and this bottom half that I was talking about. You have the SK Team Heretics, Fnatic, and G2, who are on that 4-2 scoreline, who really have been doing well in general. You know, some mistakes here and there, some happy games, as Hilly Sang likes to call them. Sorry, but nothing too crazy. You know, any one of those teams could easily be first, but I'd say, at least when I look at my predictions, they are where we expect them to be. You know, discount BDS that I had put all the way at the bottom. The SK, Team Heretics, Fnatic, G2 were in that S to A tier. So a bit, you know, according to my expectations. Obviously, not everyone had them at the same tier, but they're showcasing some good games and some individual strength. Obviously, you know, if you look at the game, G2 has been very good in team fights, playing the map. Fnatic very good at playing through for bot lane, then you know, moving that strength across the map and showing good macro overall. Team Heretics, well, you know, there's not a big identity there. It feels like a big part of the strength is coming through for perks and Yankos and SK. You know, it's a bit same. It feels like it's coming a bit from Niski and Isma. Isma has always been the shining light ever since his beginning in the LEC. So, you know, everyone coming out with their individual strength. Looking at the 6th place going down, Mad Lions, Vitality, a bit more shaky overall. Vitality a bit more in the upward trends. Mad Lions, Koi, lack of consistency. You know, they have great games as they have very poor games, and we need to see from them going into week 3 something that looks much more in control of what they're doing. And if they're behind, for example, that they showcase element where they're able to come back into the game, and when they're ahead, that they close much faster. Bottom part of the league, the Giant X, Rogue, and Carmine Corp. Those are going to be the ones who are fighting to crawl out and be in that top 8. Right now, Giant X is in the lead, but... Well, not but, actually, when I think about it. For me, Giant X is the better looking team out of the 3. Mainly it's because of Jackie's, who, for me... you know, is in contention with Rookie of the Split so far with Isma. I know it's very early to say that, but you know, if I had to distinguish, Rogue just looked dead. Rogue just looked dead. It's there's nothing interesting to look at their game. It's weight and skill, which used to be their old strat, the rook time as we used to call it, where they come into the mid to late game, and this is where they finally execute, except teams are not letting them in, and they're not letting them scale overall. Obviously, the person in the worst situation here, the organization in the worst situation, is obviously Carmine Corp. Carmine Corp here is looking down the barrel of potentially 1-8, and if it doesn't go better, the 0-9. For me, they at least had 2 games to go for last week. They had the Giant X game and they had the Vitality game. Vitality Carmine Corp game, I don't want to even talk about it. It was just so bad. Everything. It was something you'd gouge your eyes if you were to look at it. The Giant X, Carmine Corp, just I mean, they made Giant X look much better than what Giant X is. And Team Heretics, they just give them the boom that they need, the confidence that they need to go into the next segment. So the fact that Carmine Corp hasn't managed to get a win, especially with some of the drafts that they had, reflects the state of the organization and the players. So I think they'll still be able to get a game against Rogue, but once they've won that game, it's pretty much over, because then they're facing SK and BDS, and looking at those two teams, their forms, Carmine Corp is nowhere near close. If you thought at the time that Carmine Corp had a tough beginning to the season by facing Fnatic and G2, I'd say they have an even tougher, because of the context they're in, of closing in the regular split. So I think it's safe to say Carmine Corp is out within their first split. And if it happens to realize itself, questions are, what will be the changes? Are they going to do drastic changes like Fnatic did? Change the coach, change the players? Are they going to be blinded by the loyalty that their fan base and organization culture likes to bathe in? Or are they going to transfer some of the K Corp Academy players into the top league? Are we going to see Syncroft back? That's the question. But that will be for the end of week 3. Until then, we have to look at the Fnatic games. Fnatic games 2-1 this week, giving them a total of 4-2 record, which is really, really good. It's really, really good. Obviously, the BDS game wasn't the best. The draft was a bit complicated to execute, especially against the Renata, which I think is one of the strongest picks in supports right now, because there are a lot of engaged champions currently in the meta. You've got the Jax, you've got Maokai, you've got Azir, you've got Rakan, potentially Nautilus. A lot of these champions. But we did get to see Jin Blitzcrank, on which he's been notorious in the previous team and when he was in LCK Challengers. Unfortunately, he was not able to execute because of some of the elements drafted around him. If I look back at the composition, let me see. Let me find that draft again. Sorry, no. I got it wrong. I'm confusing games. Sorry. It was the Labrov Blitzcrank. Yes, hit that. It all comes back to me now. Sorry about that. Basically, what happened this game was massive disrespect from Fnatic towards BDS's draft. Blitzcrank, but especially the Olaf, where you pick Udyr. Like, while Udyr is very good in lane, Olaf, the moment he hits 6, if you don't have a comp that's able to peel for Orianna or your Varus, it's just going to run at them. It doesn't matter. There's nothing to stop him. So, a bit of a draft blunder here. Just when it comes to this pick in particular. The rest was fine, but the problem was the execution in game. When it came to, managing the blitzcrank, mispositioning, over engaging in the mid lane, where we dive a little bit on the mid to catch the blitzcrank, and Nuclear just ults. He doesn't even have to try to shuffle. He just ults 3 members towards the turret, and that gives 3 kills to BDS. And basically, this game was just over eagerness, lack of respect, and very, very poor engages. Well, beyond that, beyond the poor engages, it's more very poor use of the comp. In a sense that it was more Razork doing the engages and trying to combine with the Orianna ult than Jun, who's on the rail, who's really your main guy to go in. Sure. And so you could see they were flustered, and the comms were probably very poor, and they just didn't know how to react in general, which was a bit scary. I'm not gonna hide it, because historically those kind of executions within Fnatic were usually the reflection of a very poor week of scrims. Usually when Fnatic had poor scrim weeks, it would reflect into the games where they would be all over the place. It felt like a solo queue game. No one was playing together. No one was executing properly. And happened what happened. So when the BDS loss happened, I'm not gonna lie, I thought that we were gonna lose the next 2 games because we were so disjointed. Thankfully, Rogue and GX game much better overall. Rogue game was pretty regular, and there's nothing too crazy about it. What I liked was, again, as I mentioned last week, the bot lane aggression. The fact that what's his name? That Noah is finding his footing. Goes for the first blood. Very good Nico Jun, or Jun Nico, whatever direction you want to say this. And what was great is that they got the first blood. What wasn't so great is that they got 2 kills for comp in exchange. But that's alright. They're going to fine tune that as they go on. That's absolutely fine. What I'm really excited is that we get a support that's willing to play Nico support, right? Where they have an answer to the Heimerdinger support and basically the Virus Heimerdinger duo, which is a lot of poke, a lot of harass kind of approach. So yeah, that was pretty decent, part of the game from the bot lane. The fact that Razork very quickly saw where the priority was and took some time to come to the bot lane. Some little overstay, blunder in the execution, but very quickly, what I liked in this game is that we were able to collapse on rogue members that were out of place and just punish, and very quickly gain advantages. What was important for me, especially in that rogue game, was to show dominance, to say these teams are so bad, we need to be in control of the game, and at no moment allow them back in to the fact that we blunder and we make the mistakes by ourselves. It was very good. Oscarinen casually flame Horizons Shigenda, and the only, I'd say, member that looked alive on Rogue was Larson, because he managed to get some good collapses. He dove with Markun onto Humanoid, but even then, while Humanoid was behind compared to his immediate opponent, he was 10 times more impactful. Gets good ultis, multi-man ultis, great positioning, strong damage in team fights. Nothing much to say about this game, unfortunately. Just that it was good execution overall. Some timely mistakes here and there, but June, having good follow-up with some of Razor's Vi engages, which was great because it also showcased that they're really starting to be on the same wavelength, and language barrier, communication barrier, definitely is dropping very fast. So obviously beyond what I would say are the game elements, is the clear communication elements that seem to have been improved from between the BDS and the Rogue. What I thought was even better is that we saw a confirmation of that in the Giant X game, especially when it came to some elements of the draft. The draft, I would say, was fine in general. Just a little bit complicated initially. On paper, would have been a bit complicated for Noah's Kalista as he goes against again a Varus with Ashe lane, which should be harassing you 24/7. But he does a great job. Stays even, stays even to ahead in this game, and even with Giant X strong presence in the bot lane, they only give 1 kill in the first minutes. Razork has good neutral control on the top side of the map. Obviously, when you put Oscar on his Cassante, you're gonna have a good game. But of course, we can't talk about the last game of the week without talking about Humanoid HWEI, or Humanoid, as some people have called it. For those who've been watching Humanoid, solo queue or his in-house participation, he has a good HWEI. He has a very good HWEI. Now the question was, how is it going to fare against Tristana? High burst, high mobility against HWEI, who's a bit more. Well, he has a few different profiles because of his, different spells, but a bit more of a control mage. And to be honest, Humanoid did what we expected of him, which was control his lane, not fall behind, and then scale into an absolute monster. Where what's his name, Razork, gets a kill in the mid lane after Humanoid pokes out Jackies, and then they just play super well together. Oscarinin soaks a ton of pressure on the side lanes and forces Giant X to bring 3 to 4 people to stop him and put their Tristana on split pushing duty. But it doesn't matter because Oscar is so far ahead just by farming and pushing turrets. He still stays ahead in gold. And a bit like the Rogue game, the Giant X game was really, I saw someone say that in the Reddit, but I feel it's really correct, was another day at the office, which is really what it felt like. They came in, they played their game, they didn't do massive mistakes where it could have cost them the game. It was very well controlled. Everyone knew what they had to do, and they executed well. On top of that, Humanoid shows that he has an amazing way on stage, because that's very important to make the distinction between the stage game and what's accomplished solo queue / in-houses. So if he's able to have a very clean HWEI game, gets the MVP at the end of the day, it's lovely. And it was a quick game too. I believe it was like 27, 28 minutes, which is also a distinction of how well executed the plan was. And, Giant Techs have shown some good elements in some of their games, but I think it was an important game to win so convincingly, especially. So overall, Fnatic, very good week. Very, very good week. Now it's all about confirming this progress from week 1 to week 2. And finally get a 3-0. And just the main reason for that is that Fnatic face G2. And in the game of the week, obviously, you wouldn't have it on the other way. So 3-0 not only gives us a good spot in the rankings, but also means we've taken over G2, which is always something you want as a Fnatic fan. So, big expectations ahead, which you guys seem to agree on the predictions. As I mentioned, 2-point lead for you guys. We seem to have little difference in ideas. I'm surprised you guys put Team Heretics, seeing that BDS has been quite dominant here. The SK over Vitality picks makes sense, but I feel like the trend is more on Vitality side, where they've sort of finally found their groove. They finally found what works for them. So, and SK has had a more troublesome week. They've lost 2 games in week 2, so maybe they'll bounce back. But looking at recent trends, seems that Vitality has it. Fnatic versus Mad Lions KOI. I think it's going to be a very interesting game. Exciting rookies. Very proactive. It's going to be a brawler. G2 versus GX. Now that's quite a funny match title. And Rogue versus KC. We both voted KC. I think if there's one game for KC to win in this split, this is the one. If they don't win this, not only is it game over for them, but I think within the organization, all the flags are red. So good luck in managing that. Sincerely. Day 2. I like you guys' pick. I mean, you guys seem very involved in Team Heretic's success. We've put him against Vitality. I think again Vitality might look a bit better. Fnatic G2, Fnatic faithful. There's 0% vote for G2. Very proud of you guys. Well done. You're making me proud. Giant Eggs versus Mad Lions KOI. Mad Lions KOI, I think, have the most interesting players here. But we're never, you can always be surprised. Because as I mentioned, Mad Lions KOI, always on different trends. They like that consistency, and that's going to be one of their big challenges this week. KCSK, nail on the coffin. Niski kicks out his favorite club. But he has to do it. So is the game. Don't blame the player, blame the game. But it's quite ironic that of all people, Niski is the one to remove any chances for KC to go into group stage. Or go into the playoffs. Sorry, now it's called the playoffs. Final week. Same ideas, except for G2 versus SK. You guys are giving SK ahead. I understand that SK does have the better early game, and that G2's early game is absolutely atrocious. However, I think that G2 is going to have an upwards trend towards the last games of the season, and it's going to bring it home. I'm just realizing that my frame is a bit out. Just gonna correct that really quick. There we go. Boom. And lock. There we go. Awesome. Guys, thanks again for joining me today for this very late podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. I will be traveling for work this weekend, so I'm going to be missing some of the games. Again, I can't get a single time for myself to watch the games quietly, with peace and quiet. Always on the move. That's good. It's good to be busy. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget to follow all the accounts to know what's going on the podcast and in Fnatic. Guys, I love you very much. Enjoy the last week of regular winter split. And as usual, you know it. Oh, I've gone blurry. Blurry, always Fnatic. Bye-bye.